And as usual, it doesn't give us a countdown, but it tells us we're live. Good evening and welcome to MZTV. And this is a bit of a different show. We've discussed, my brain is not working. We've discussed a lot about physical disabilities, wheelchair use, accessibility, etc. And quite coincidentally, we'd already had this show lined up. You remember at the end of the last show, Mick, you had to cover for me, didn't you, basically?
I did. You were poorly. You suddenly went, ugh.
Literally, and we're going to be discussing why later. Now, here comes the famous intro.
Welcome to MZTV.
MZTV.
Yeah, we did say it was very.
There you go. That was a masterpiece. A masterpiece made up in less than 10 minutes ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. How are you coping in the heat, Mick?
I'm dissolving. I'm currently trouserless. More information, but I just won't bring.
Subscribers can view the other camera.
Don't move the camera. And I've got one of those huge, like, industrial fans sat pointing directly at me. So this 1980s quiff that's flicking around in the wind.
I've got a fan there behind me. I'm really struggling.
You've got a towel as well, so I've got a cold towel or something.
I've got my ice towel, that you soak in water and you flick it about, and something about the science behind it, as water evaporates, it becomes cooler. And you whack it on your neck, and then when it stops, I say my neck, it's normally on my legs. You give it a shake and it's cool again. And I can't do without that.
Talking of cold things on your legs, earlier today, right, I was pouring some water, like cold water out the fridge, and I missed, and it fell on my right leg. Scared the hell out of me because I could feel it. And I'm like, I have no idea what's going on with my body at the minute because I haven't been able to feel on my right leg for a very long time, like ever. Like it was damaged by the cancer. So, and yet today I poured cold water on it and it was like, oh, that's cold. So I have no idea what's going on in my spine. My spine is a mystery.
Hello, Diane will be out with the feathers tonight.
Spinal mystery. The mystery of Mick's spine. It'll be like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Raiders of the Lost Spine.
So tonight we've got guests. I'm going to bring Jeremy in now. Now, Jeremy, like myself,
Good evening, everyone.
We spoke about my crash at the end of last week, and like me, Jeremy. In fact, people say to me, "Oh, when was you diagnosed with ME?" And I go, "Oh, it was 1997." And they're like, oh, "You're a real long hauler." I'm not. No, Jeremy, we're the same age. I'm 56 this year. You're 56. Jeremy's 6'5". I'm 6'4". Look at us, beards. We're brothers from another mother.
I'm the old short one.
Yeah.
6'3".
When was you diagnosed, Jeremy?
1987, when I was 19 years old. Yeah.
So is that back when they were calling it yuppie flu?
Yeah, that kind of dogged me all the way through my kind of university years and in starting my working life. Yeah, that was quite a hard label to carry, really. People just not taking it seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the old stock exchange workers being burnt out, and so they coined it yuppie flu. So what happened from healthy Jeremy? What took you into ME? What was the events, the medical happenings?
Well, my ME story is a bit unusual because a lot of people do have a happening, an event. I've never been well. I can always remember way back to primary school, constantly being ill, constantly having sore throats, infections, constantly being tested for glandular fever or for tonsillitis, never been completely well. And it wasn't until I was about 19 that I actually found a sympathetic, knowledgeable GP who said, I think you have this. And then at the time, there was a blood test they did they looked for a post-viral particle, VP1, he called it. I never know whether that's a real thing or whether he just made something up to make me feel happy. But that was when I got a formal diagnosis of it.
That's quite amazing to find a doctor back then. I mean, I was lucky. My GP said, oh, look, I know this woman, Dr. Elizabeth Dowsett, who worked with Charles Shepherd, and they were the ones that were really pushing it. She was a tropical diseases thing, and I actually went to see her in person. And I came down with cardiac. I had pericarditis, like the swollen sac around the heart, just collapsed. I was healthy. The day before, on my mountain bike, I'd ridden to work, ridden to the in-laws after work, helped move the shed, and ridden sort of 6 miles home. And the next day, boom. And after a lot of to and fro-in, the doctor walked, the consultant walked in, the God that walks in with his disciples. He says, you're all wasting my time. Your problem's above the neck, not below it. Get out of my bed. Stop wasting my time. Wow. And I tried. I thought, okay, is this mentally? I was under a lot of stress, which we know can also trigger it. And no, for many years I was really beaten down. It was like just couldn't do anything.
It's intriguing to me because when I was, when I was 17, so 1982, I caught glandular fever.
Yeah.
And after that, I just didn't get better. And I kept having to be rushed to hospital with various things. I'd only been in the wheelchair a year and a bit. So everyone started thinking it was that. And then they diagnosed me with what they called then as post-viral systemic collapse.
Yeah.
Right.
And for a few years, it was just, I was always, like you said, always being ill. But then it kind of went away. And I always wondered if that's what I'd had. Because later on, the things that people describe was very much what I had. And it just went. So I don't know, it probably wasn't it, because it does sound like something that doesn't just go away.
Yeah.
But
it can. I was very unwell, and then in 2008 I returned to work. I'd done a bit of volunteering, built myself up, and I was back at work. Yes, I was still having to pace, go home, sleep, and if we were going anywhere, sleep before and rest. But then when my knees went and I had the accident that tore my knee out, I think all the stress from that and all the stress from the company I was working for that fought me on it and sacked me for other reasons, made it up because they didn't want, it's just the way they did things. And I had a mental health breakdown. So I think the extra strain of my mobility going and that mental breakdown, and it's just boom. And that was 2008, 10, I think. So, I mean,
as someone that doesn't know about it, what are the symptoms? What is ME? What does it make you feel like?
I think it's different for everybody. So I'm just being called. Let me just say that.
You know what, Jerry, you're the first one that's actually done that. That's made my day.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I brought my phone in case I needed to switch that. But I think the symptoms for ME are different for everybody. I've been, for the last 18 months, I've been going around the country photographing and interviewing people who've got ME, as Zach mentioned, and everybody has a different sort of core set of symptoms. But I think pretty much everyone would recognize what we call brain fog, just simply not having clarity of thought or consistency of thought or energy to think clearly. Lots of people are sensitive to light and noise. They find it extremely disturbing. People have muscle pain. I have almost constant sore throats and headaches and temperatures. People have exhaustion. And that's kind of on the milder end. And I've photographed people who are just bedbound and have to wear eye masks and ear defenders in a dark room just to get through the day.
Yeah, and Dr. Elizabeth Dowsett said on the big long letter that she wrote, it can end with end organ failure. And I think we've had quite a few people in the ME community that have now died. But the problem is, I mean, I was on a forum many years ago called Brain Fog. Before social media, it was like one of these forums. And the people that I met on there, mainly women, I have to say, there was a few men, but it was mainly women, have now gone on to be diagnosed. I think we've got one with lupus, one with, what's the tick one? Tick-borne disease.
Yeah, I know.
Lyme disease. Somebody's been diagnosed with MS, and twice I've been sent. They're like, "Oh, hang on, no, we think it's MS."
Yeah.
But it is so hard to describe it. I mean, literally that being unable to think, and you saw at the end of last week's episode.
Yeah,
it can come on.
I watched you. It was like watching. You know, when you're a kid, you have wind-up toys.
Yeah.
And they go like la 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 la, and then you just stopped, and it was really you just saying I can't carry on.
Yeah.
With so much effort, you could see that you were pushing your body to its absolute limit to say I've got to stop.
It hurts. I struggle with the mental fatigue. I don't know if you agree, Jeremy. Mental fatigue is horrible, far more than the physical fatigue, because the physical fatigue is that real beating of your muscles, like as if you've run like 10 marathons that day, that complete drain. But in the brain, I've had it where I've been sat on the laptop and all of a sudden it's hit, and just trying to think, I said, my wife's like swimming through cement, and it hurts just to function to get myself to sleep. But Jeremy, we had a chat earlier in the week, and he mentioned something, when he crashes, sometimes go and have a 10-minute nap.
Yeah.
And it's like a quick charge, and you can function for the rest of the day till you have to go to sleep.
Yeah, no, I definitely find that by the middle of the day, if I've had a busy day and I've been doing lots of emails or computer work, my brain is just spinning. The fog is just incredible. And I have to just go and shut down for 10 or 15 minutes, 30 minutes if I can, would be better. But sometimes just 10 minutes is enough to reset my brain, just to clear everything out and just stop everything for 10 minutes and then start again. And it
I
does
have to
help.
say, I think you're better at pacing than me. From our phone call, I think you've got the hang of pacing.
I don't think so.
No,
I'm terrible at it. I'm feeling awful today because I was flat out trying to do stuff yesterday. I was feeling quite good, and I worked a really long day doing some DIY. And then this morning I rushed over to a support group in Cambridge to meet some people, and then I came rushing back, and I'm really paying the price for it now.
Yeah. So I went to synagogue yesterday. I thought, right, I'm going to make it. I rested for 4 days. I'm going to go to synagogue, and it was hot. We've got the prayer shawl on, the whole lot. I'm hot, and the whole thing. And when I come back, I was like, I'm going to have a flare up, so I might as well go for it. So I went and weeded the border in the garden in that heat. And then I come back and I saw my wife stood there, and I'm like, oh God, I'm in so much. She's literally found me collapsed in the garden before because I will do it. But it's that horrible thing of, right, I'm going to rest because I need to do something. And you rest, and then you just manage to do it. And then you've got to rest after because then you have the flare up. So you find one event can cost you sometimes a couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, I photographed someone back in November last year, and she'd been bedbound for several months. And she told me at that point she wasn't going downstairs again until Christmas Day. She was waiting for Christmas Day to have half an hour downstairs with her husband.
Wow.
And then she knew she'd be in bed again for months afterwards. She was just planning for that effort.
Yeah. And we disappear. People don't realise. I think it's that whole thing of, somebody described it as we're the living dead. You know, all of a sudden you disappear from your friends' groups. You'll get invites, but you're unreliable. Yeah, I'll come. And then all of a sudden, no, it's not possible.
I think the thing is that bit's to do with any chronic illness. I mean, I'm got something completely different, but I haven't gone out properly for nearly a year now. Last night I went down the pub to meet a friend that I haven't seen for over a year. I had 2 lagers, drunk very quickly because I found that painkillers and lagers works together quite well. However, not that day didn't. So I came home, was violently sick, passed out. So, but you get so that you're out. People worry that they don't want to talk to you because they don't want to make you feel like you've got to push yourself. And also they don't know what to say when you're ill.
Right.
So that they back away from you, and you haven't got the energy and the power and the wherewithal to be able to push yourself to meet them. Yeah. So you end up just disappearing. So I think that's, and it's, but see, something I'm really interested in is, like, both of you have had it a long time.
Yeah.
Like you said, way back from when it wasn't really perceived as being real, was it? It was something that people kind of went, there's something that, like you said, it's in your head, not in your body.
It's still happening. GPs, consultants, nurses are still not recognising ME. It's one of those things I say thankfully. I shouldn't say thankfully. I hate seeing all these people that are posting with long COVID, and they're going through the fight that probably me and Jeremy went through, where you're like, what is this? And they go, we think it's this. But you want that definite answer. Fight. What's wrong with me? I mean, how long did it take you to get, how long did it take you? You was at school, wasn't you, right the way through to university? I mean, was that just luck that you chanced upon that doctor? Or was it?
Yeah, he was just our family GP at the time, and I kept going to him saying I was feeling grim, and he just kept looking for answers for me. And I think there'd been some publicity. I think one of the big first articles was 86 in the Observer, 1986, and I was diagnosed in 87. So I think it was coming into popular consciousness as yuppie flu, but this particular guy was quite helpful. But what was really, I found quite interesting, what happened with me is that I had the diagnosis, was told it was incurable. I was kind of 19, I kind of limped through university and the next few years and gradually kind of got better. And I just kind of put it aside. I never really dealt with the medical profession about it until about 8 years ago, when I was feeling really, really bad. I had a real kind of relapse. And I thought, well, things must have changed in the last 20 odd years. I'll go to my GP and see what new treatments or tests There are. Also, I've been traveling a lot. I had a career in television. I've been everywhere from kind of Pakistan to Yemen to Bosnia to Iraq. I've been to some hairy places, and I thought, well, I might have picked something up anyway. So went to the GP, told her about the travel, about the ME, and about how I was feeling. And as soon as I said ME, her head just went like this.
Yeah.
And she looked me straight in the eye and said, "What do you expect me to do about that?"
Because I'm just going to ask.
Get out of my consulting room. You're wasting my time.
But what is the treatment then? Or is it? Because I know, like I said, one of my really good friends, his girlfriend had it, and it seemed to be give you lots and lots and lots of pills that all seem to be something that's fixing the side effect of another pill. Yeah. And it seemed to be I've got buckets of pills, but good God, this girl was just taking massive, hospital amounts of pills every 4 hours. It was
well, historically, it's something that's been mired in misinformation and controversy. And it was only 2 years ago that the NICE guidelines were updated. Before that, the two standard treatments were given were graded exercise therapy. So that the view was that people with ME were deconditioned, that we needed to get back to full fitness. So there was graded exercise therapy, and then there was cognitive behavioral therapy, that basically you need to learn to live with this, or you need to find a way of dealing with your symptoms. And those were the two standard things that were prescribed. And anecdotally, and I haven't read the literature, I'm sure there is there, and also medically, it was found to be massively damaging to people.
Yeah, some people have been through hell, haven't they? Being forced to exercise, basically.
Well, I photographed a dancer, 25-year-old dancer, who was training 40 hours a week when she came down with ME. Yeah. She was told she was deconditioned, so she went back to exercising. She ended up in hospitalized.
Yeah.
And it's still, I was talking to people at the support group today, and people are still being told, oh, yes, they go to the GP. I know treatment on this. We have to give you graded exercise therapy. And it's like, it's still not getting through to the medical profession. That's maybe not always the best treatment for people. Right.
But I mean, you tried improving gut health, didn't you, for a long while for treating it?
I suspected there was something to do with my gut with it. So I didn't really try treating. Well, I did actually. Yes, you're absolutely right. I went to see a nutritionist about 8 years ago when I had that terrible flare up, and she gave me some probiotics. Very keen on vitamin B. What else did she prescribe? I can't remember now, but it was very expensive, and I didn't find it was particularly helping me. But I know some people find diet very important, very useful way of controlling the symptoms, if not the disease itself.
Yeah, we got Bill is watching. He's in the comments. He says he runs a group for people with ME in York. None have found anything that helps other than rest and pasting. There you go. The brain's going. I tried D-ribose. That was recommended. Bill could make a comment on this. D-ribose was thing, and that's a complex sugar that bodybuilders use. And how was I having it? I can't remember. I was having it in my tea. That's it. So my wife would stir it into the tea as a complex sugar. It got very expensive, that's why I stopped it. But they were saying that should help. At one point, they were saying, think of it like the heart has got all these cells that are rechargeable batteries. And basically, we're a bit like a 10-year-old phone that's just not recharging fully every time. That was one thing. But now long COVID's out, they're looking at microclots. And they're saying it could be microclots in the brain. I'm going. It's where I've overdone it. My vocabulary goes so bad that a couple of years ago, my family kept looking at me, and I just knew something was up. And I'm like, what? Because I can replace words, and I know that. And they said, you keep saying blueberry. I'm like, no, I don't. You do. You'll replace a word, and you go, yeah, I was out, with the blueberry, and they, bless them, they just carry on and listen to me and figure out what I'm saying, or I will stop mid-sentence. Because my brain is just that bad. And like Jeremy says, if I'm flaring up, light hurts, multiple noises can hurt. I can't, if there's two conversations in a room, it's torture. Certain dinners, the smells and tastes become too much.
It fascinates me that this is one of the things I'm always really confused by whenever we talk to anyone about their specific impairments and what it means is the lack of research. I mean, me with my chronic pain, I'm always amazed that there isn't a huge, focus on finding ways of stopping, the way pain functions is very simple to understand. So why isn't it being researched how you can affect it? And it seems to me that ME is one of those things where you'd think there'd be so many researchers going, right, let's look into it, because it's
I think that's what has changed since I've been diagnosed and re-engaged with kind of my ME, is there is a lot of research. I was just at a conference about 4 weeks ago in Cambridge that was put on by Invest in ME, who are an amazing charity who raise money to fund research into ME. And there were researchers from all over the world, from Harvard, from Cambridge, from India, all looking at, and I think they put on a day especially for people like us, lay people who have it. So there was 4 days of scientific conference and a day where they presented to patients. So a lot of it went right above my head. But from what I could pick up, they've identified 10 different areas that potentially ME can affect you. Everything from the way your heart functions to what you're saying, Zach, about the mitochondria, to all sorts of things. And they're busy looking at it. So there is a tremendous amount of really interesting, good research happening, but it's just not got to the point yet where it's delivering anything that's useful for me. Cynically put it.
And long COVID has boosted that, because there's so many people unwell with long COVID. Boom. And in fact, I take Metatone when I'm really run down, which is like an iron supplement, with vitamins and minerals. After COVID, getting hold of the stuff has become quite problematic, because now so many people are taking Metatone.
Interesting. And something interesting someone else I was photographing said to me is that, yes, there is no cure, but there are drugs that can alleviate some of our symptoms. But because it's perceived as sometimes a psychosocial illness rather than biomedical, doctors are reluctant to prescribe those drugs that could actually bring some relief for some of the symptoms. I've not had experience of that. I haven't really sought out medication, but I know that people do need it and should be able to get access with it. So this perception of it as a psychosocial illness is quite damaging.
I think at the moment, there's a huge problem within the medical profession of trying to wean people off medication. Anyway, I mean, like I said, I've been living with chronic pain for 42 years. I've been taking pain-killing medications for a long time. At the moment, I'm going through a bad patch after a car accident impacted more upon my spine than I would have liked it to. But I'm still having doctors trying to take medication away from me rather than see me through this period of illness, which I hope will be fixable. But if it is, great. If it isn't, you still need medication so that you can manage, because I've done CBT for my pain and it's great, but it's not going to cure it. It's a way of learning to soldier on. And the problem with that is that if there is a medication that can help you, it's like going into battle without any guns. It makes no sense. So, it's stunning to me that so many people are left just so alone. And
I hadn't seen a doctor since then, since Elizabeth Dowsett in '97, and then a few years ago, sort of like 5 or 6, I think it was, I found out now in my local hospital, Southend, there's an ME clinic, and I thought, right, I'm going to go and see them, because I've only ever had this kind of a physical. I've never had any kind of medical, if that makes sense. So I asked my GP for a referral, and he was like, "Yep, I do that." And it came back, and they said, "No, sorry, we can't accept you. You're too unwell."
That's terrible.
And I was like, so it's a bit like going to the mechanic and going, "My car's broken." They're going, "Yeah, no, we don't fix something that broken. Like, you're going to have to go elsewhere."
And I heard similar stories today at the support group I went to, with people being friends of theirs being told they weren't accepted into ME clinics because they had other illnesses at the same time, comorbidities. We're told, "No, we can't treat you." And it's just like, well, that wouldn't happen if you had motor neurone disease or MS or cancer. It wouldn't turn you away. Well, I'm guessing that wouldn't happen. It could do, but
there's better support for those sort of things. These recognise things like MS because they've got the MS Society, motor neurone disease, the cancer charities. But with ME, like you say, it is still a little bit like, oh, really? People see us when we're at our best. So we go out and I'm feeling good. So, right, I'm going to go and visit someone or go somewhere. And they're like, well, he looks all right. Jeremy was saying, we're both big blokes, got beards. We look fairly healthy.
Yeah.
And I think it was only a couple of weeks ago when I went to synagogue that they went, "Oh, you look really, really unwell. Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, no, I'm not." But sometimes, when you push yourself to do it and you think, "Can I do it or can't I?" And it's that risk that you will collapse while you're out. Like, I haven't had it done yet, luckily, but it's that fear.
Again, I think that's a shared experience of anyone with any kind of chronic illness. Is that when you go to a doctor, the mere fact of going to see someone means you bolster yourself up and get there, and so you're actually at the best you can be. I mean, I wear fake tan because I do stuff in the media still, and they always go, "Oh, you look very healthy," and it's like, yeah, but I'm covered in fake tan. I'm not this color. I'm not a rosy glow. It's all paint.
Yeah. And that's the problem with disability benefits. Try and get in PIP when you go to them for ME.
Yeah.
Because I know most of my pain. I had my knee surgery, the injury, and all these problems, and the pain doesn't go. I had that pericarditis. I still get the chest pains. I still have an inverted T wave. And they're like, "No, that's just natural for you." And I'm like, "No, I worked for the MOD. We were doing a certain trials and tests, and I went and I had a full medical workup, and I had no inverted T wave. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken part in it. So I know I never had it. And so there's certain things, but and even phoning a GP now, for someone with ME, trying to phone up and like 100 redials and then sitting on wait with awful music is impossible. Absolutely impossible.
Yeah, I hear that again and again, that people are just kind of left to find their own way through it because there's no kind of recognized kind of pathway. Some areas are really lucky. They have very good ME clinics, ME services that can help, but so many people are just left to figure it out, do their own research, try and reach the consultants themselves, try and find something that works for them. And very often it's more than people can cope with, especially if they're on their own.
Yeah. So, Jeremy,
loneliness is a big problem.
For anyone that's watching now who has found themselves, unfortunately, with long COVID, and I hate watching these people type away and desperate, what would be your advice to them as they're entering this world of chronic fatigue, of ME, of long COVID?
Well, I think one of your viewers, just Bill from York, just from the York support group, just popped up and said rest. I think if you can rest, I think that's really it. That's what I say to everybody. I mean, anyone that comes to me that's got glandular fever or long COVID or anything like that, I'm saying don't push yourself. If you can rest straight away, and then just be gently persistent with your doctors, because doctors are generally good people. They're there because they want to help. They want to do the best for patients. And if you can find a way of just keeping on at them, we shouldn't have to, but sometimes you have to just keep on at them until you get the service you think you need, really.
And it's finding that GP. I know at my GP surgery, I know there's a couple of GPs, it's like a no. I phone up and they say, "We've got an appointment with blah," and I say, "Well, I'll forget it," because I know it's banging my head against the brick wall. It's finding that decent GP, but it's tiring. Some people just don't have the mental energy for it, do they?
Well, I mean, I've done a lot in the media with, my job now is I make a lot of videos for charities, particularly healthcare charities, and more often than not, we find people who want to take part, who want to be involved, who want to share their stories. But since I've been shooting this project about ME, I've realized there's a whole batch of people that you never come across because they're just too ill and they can't push themselves. They can't make that effort to accommodate, because it is such a debilitating disease.
Yeah, we recently had the story, I think, within the last month or 2 months, a girl in hospital with ME who was so unwell, her energy levels were so low, she couldn't feed. And she was laying in hospital basically starving because they weren't taking her seriously. They weren't catering to her.
It was down in the West Country, and they had one a couple of years ago, didn't they? Another young woman who sadly died. I'm not sure if it was the same trust or hospital, but I think this particular case you're talking about, the family have been able to intervene and get tube feeding, but
they have,
it can be just brutal. I mean, can you imagine any other disease like that takes 250,000 people in this country supposedly living with it, yet it doesn't have the proper insight?
And that's why chronic fatigue doesn't really cover it. You can't say to someone, "What's it like?" It's fatigue. And it's like, "Oh yeah, I've had that. I've been to gym really bad." No, it's fatigue on a whole. This is nuclear fatigue for people not to be able to feed, or it just hits the whole system. But it does. I mean, I think there are crossovers. This is the problem. You know, with MS, there's a lot of symptoms that are like, there's a lot of things where it kind of, fibromyalgia is very similar. And there's a whole, and so there are people out there that are misdiagnosed, I think. But getting someone to listen to you, if you've already got ME, whenever you go to a GP, Mick knows this with any condition, you go and you go, I've got this happening to me. And they go, yeah, that just happens to you. They just put it down. It's another thing to do with you rather than exploring.
I mean, the thing is, if there's no sort of clear treatment and there's loads of doctors going, oh, well, it's all made up anyway, it's all in your head, it's going to be such a battle. I mean, getting any support now is almost impossible compared to what it used to be like 10, 20 years ago when you needed physiotherapy or occupational therapy or social work. All of that's gone. You have to do it yourself. At the moment, I'm going through this, I came out of hospital in March. I still haven't had a single second of physiotherapy because I have to arrange it all myself. Now, I've never seen that before. And I got a spinal cord injury. So I've got something that is obvious. No one's going to go, you're making that up. That spine's fine, mate. Do you know what I mean? So, and so if you've got a condition that is very difficult to nail down, very difficult to know what the reason is, what the causes are, and that takes away your energy, to then leave you in a position where you've got to be the one that works out if your housing's right for you, that you're the one that's got to work out your care packages, your support structure, your medical care, making sure that you have the kind of physio you might need to make. If you're being stuck in bed all day, every day, you're going to need physio to keep your body functioning. And so it makes no sense to say, well, you're deconditioned if you're not giving exercise isn't right for someone that can't exercise. No. You've got to do passive, exercise that maintains muscle strength and tendon flexibility without it. I mean, I know this, and I'm just some sickly, willy. So how is it that the medical profession seems to get it so wrong?
I'm going to say, Jeremy, at this point, are you okay to continue, or do you need to go?
Yeah, I'm okay. Actually, I'm better than I thought. Yeah, I was suffering a bit earlier.
Okay. Bill said, I mean, the fatigue is like your body's closing down. I've posted many times, I need to go because my brain is running on Windows 98 safe mode.
Well, like we said last show, if you want to see it, what it looks like, and you go, well, what does he mean? Watch the last MZTV. It's about 35 minutes in. Watch Zek, because he genuinely switches off.
Mentally shut down.
I've never seen it before. He just switched off. It just went, and he just stopped. And it was like watching. He wasn't there anymore. He'd gone.
Yeah.
But what's really terrifying to think about with ME is that, I don't know about you, Zek, but I definitely think I'm one of the lucky ones. I can have moments of activity or days of activity. I can go out, and then I have the slump. Yeah. There are people who have no ability to do what I've just done today, which is go to an ME support group. They're just too ill. I mean, some of even the NICE guidelines say it can be as severe as sort of end-stage cancer, but it can go on for years, where people just cannot leave their bedrooms.
You're right. I'm lucky. I can be stupid and overdo it because I like gardening, because it's good for my mental health, because I want to go here or there. Doesn't happen often. I'm 95% housebound, I'd say. But I do have those moments where I can go, I'm going to do this because I think it's worth it. I don't think that sort of the next morning, as you say, when you wake up, like you have got the worst flu, sore throat and just body aching and stuff like that. But yeah, we are very lucky that we can do it, because
don't you think that both yourself, Zek, and Jeremy, what you're doing is doing it for them, doing it for the people that can't? You're both raising the issue, making sure that it's in the public arena. Making sure. Look, I mean, a show like this, I knew nothing about it. I've learned so much, and I want to know more. And I bet loads of other people will. Your photographic work, Jeremy. That's the thing. That's the only thing you can do, is do it for the people who are out there, but just aren't being covered or ever get, because they haven't got the ability to even have someone come in and do anything other than a photograph. Do you know what I mean? Like, the idea of being interviewed like this would just be beyond them.
No, I was photographing someone this week, and we arranged before I got there what would happen, and that I would stay for a maximum of 45 minutes, and she set an alarm, And she said, I'm not being rude, but when that goes off, you have to leave. But I'd actually finished and was walking out the door when the alarm went off. But other people, I've literally had 2 or 3 minutes in the room with them when they've just said, I'm sorry, I just can't bear it. All those things we've talked about, the kind of noise, the light, the movement, but just the feeling unwell, the feeling awful.
Yeah, I mean, people are in dark rooms with headphones on, noise cancelling headphones, and that's awful. I mean, I have spent some time like that. Luckily, it was only I think a year where I was at my very worst, and other times it was sleeping twice a day, 3 times a day. But yeah, that is harsh, and it must be so difficult for.
And it's staggering when you look at the numbers of people. I don't know where the figure 250,000 comes from, but that's the figure that's been quoted for many years about the number of people with it. But when you look at the average amount that's spent on research and treatment and support for people with ME compared with diseases that have a comparable sort of distribution through the population, we're probably getting a quarter or a tenth in some cases of what other diseases are getting in terms of funding. And that's what really needs to change, that it needs to go higher up. I mean, there were some nice movements at a government level, but I'm not sure with changes in personnel whether those are going to continue. But I think there is movement. I am hopeful. I think the tide is turning. I don't think we're being met all the time with indifference or hostility. And that is the positive I've seen. And I have spoken to a lot of people who found good clinics, good support, as well as people who found bad.
I think there was a celebrity quite a few years ago. I think their child had ME, and so it hit the headlines for quite a while. But there's now somebody who's come out, somebody very famous has come up and said that they have got long COVID. And as I say, my brain is just not going to function. It's not going to happen now. I'm not going to remember the name.
You've got Kate Gardner's husband, haven't you? Do you know what I mean? Someone that has been, gone from being a virile, action man to continuously being rushed to hospital, unable to speak, unable to think. And I know lots of people personally who are like, oh, COVID's all rubbish and all this stuff. And it's like, having had it and having witnessed how extreme it can be, and how different it can be for different people. Yeah. I and my wife and myself had it. We both had it for about 10 days. It was like we'd got 2 different diseases. So that's it. Kate Garraway, that's it, not Kate Gardner. Thank you very much, Facebook user. Kate famous person. Anyway, my wife pushed through it and felt awful for ages afterwards. I just laid on the sofa and went sod it, and I got over it quickly. But for all those people that have developed this, the idea, I think it's going to be a huge shock, because so many people don't appreciate how little there is on offer. Most people in the public who aren't impacted by chronic illness or impairment go, oh, well, you get all this stuff, won't you, that will happen, and it doesn't. No. And that, I mean, as well as all the research, I mean, I think the idea of these support groups are fantastic. This is what really need, and peer support is just the most amazing thing ever. But of course, for your community, it needs to be online, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. And I mean, there's I think it's hashtag PW in lowercase and then the uppercase ME is quite a line now. The forum doesn't happen. I mainly keep up to date with people just through Twitter is the main community where I go. I mean, if you want to find Jeremy, it's not going to be Jeremy Jeffs, but I kept having to look because normally you type it in, but it's Magneto JJ.
Yeah, that's right.
On there. Yeah.
That's right.
There is a whole community, and I think there is, again, I'm not going to tell you, there is a day or an evening where they have an ME evening or day or hour where people go online to discuss it. But thinking, someone said, Robbie Williams says he's had it. I don't watch Glastonbury. I'm not really into my pop and rock. But quite a few of them have had vocal issues this year, I've seen. The big Scottish lad, face like a frying pan. What's his name? He'd say that himself.
Lewis Capaldi.
Lewis Capaldi, his voice has gone. I think a few of them are struggling.
I mean, I don't know if you saw it. I mean, because he's just been diagnosed as autistic, hasn't he? And he had an overload on stage, and the whole audience sang for him. It was stunning.
That's what it was.
And it was like, and everyone was going, "Oh, he shouldn't have gone on if he was ill," and all this stuff. And it's like, but this is the point: is that we need to move to a society where people are more accepting. Like, you would love to work. Jeremy works. Wouldn't it be great if we promoted the idea that people could work to their ability be supported by the state, but also supported to work if they can.
Yeah.
You know, I've been so lucky. I've been too ill to leave the house for a year, but I've worked solidly through it. And that has really helped with my mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, you know, yeah, this has been a real eye-opener for me.
There it is.
Yeah.
Emmy Awareness Hour is on Wednesday, 8 to 9 p.m. on Twitter.
Well done, Bill.
Yeah. So Bill's managing. I take it.
Well, I'll tell you what. Before we go, we should find out about Jeremy's photographic project and find out what's going to happen with it and what it's doing. Because get a plug in there and anything else.
Well, no, I started it about 18 months ago when I kind of realised I met for the first time someone else who had ME. Even though I've had it all my life, I never really talk about it or mention it, so it never really comes up in conversation. Yeah. But I've been booked to do a shoot for a charity that wanted to promote access to the countryside, and we'd hired a model who used a wheelchair. And before the shoot, I was talking to her saying, well, we're going to have to, there may not be anywhere very smooth to park your car. Are you okay maneuvering out of the car into your wheelchair? Do you need any support with that? And she said, oh, it's fine, I can walk. I've got ME. I just choose to use a powered wheelchair. So on the shoot, I said, well, I've got ME too. And we had a chat at lunchtime. And she was the first person I'd met with ME. And I thought, well, hang on a minute. I've been making films for 20 odd years, videos for charities for a long time about health. I should be doing something about my condition. So I decided what I wanted to do was to visit people in their own homes and to look at the spaces where we shut ourselves away when we're not very well. People's sitting rooms or wherever they feel comfortable being photographed, just look at the place that ought to be a refuge and a place of comfort and happiness, your home. For people with ME can become a prison, can become a cell. So I've been just photographing very simple, classic sort of documentary black and white portraits of people in the spaces where they're happy to be photographed. Sometimes, as I say, I spend as little as 5 or 6 minutes with people. Other people can put up with me for nearly an hour before I'm out. I've photographed about 27 people so far. I counted up this morning, and I'm hoping to get around 50 in total. Right. And the idea is a book and an exhibition, or maybe just an online gallery, but just something where we can say, these are the people who have it. They look like you. They could be your mum, your dad. It's not just the stereotype that if you see a stock footage image with a newspaper article of someone, it's someone looking like they've got a bit of a hangover wrapped in a blanket on the sofa. It's a whole range of symptoms, and it's a really devastating, horrible disease.
How do you get that across? Because, even on my worst days, I've done it, and I thought, I'm going to take a photo, show people this is it. And I look and I go, I just look bloody tired. You can't see. I don't think it's one of those ones where you're ever going to see it, because it is a hidden disability to some extent.
It's almost an invisible illness. It is a challenge, and I just try and just be very gentle about it and get people just to settle into a position they're happy with, and I just let them go for 5 or 10 minutes until they've kind of just relaxed, and just try and capture that moment of relaxation or giving into how they're feeling, because they're normally pretty ill. And just try and capture that. But it is, I mean, I've not published them yet, and I'm sort of in the process of sharing the pictures with the people I photographed to make sure they're happy. But I have shown it to a couple kind of mentors and people who are photographic community, and everyone's been quite stunned by them. People just don't realise what it's like and what it is, and the sheer volume of people. So I think, even though it's difficult to show the illness, I think putting faces to the illness is a good start, and will have impact.
Yeah, I think if you can get an exhibition and then, the media gets involved and interested, anything that gives it that push. And like you say, other people go, I've got that as well. And it is that connection somehow. It makes it easier when you meet someone else. They go, I've got that as well. And you feel like you're not alone. It's strange, isn't it? It's that.
Or I've heard of it. How can I make it easier for you for this meeting, or for your work, or for your PIP assessment, or, it's those kind of daily things where you're treating someone with a chronic illness that may not be visible. We are slowly getting more aware of, I think, as a society, but there's certain illnesses that are not recognised, and it makes it harder every day for people to get by.
Absolutely. I think if it does that even a little bit, then it will be really worthwhile. But it does sound fascinating, and
thank you.
We'll definitely. I know that someone just said, what about doing it for next year's Disability Pride Month, which is, of course, July, isn't it? July is Disability Pride Month.
That's a good idea.
It is, yeah, and please do keep us updated on it, and maybe when the time comes, come back and talk to us about.
Well, Zach, I'm going to make you do more than that. I'm going to make you be in the photographs as well. I'm going to badger you until you invite me down to Southend for a photo session.
Yep, that's not a problem. Yeah, I mean, I'm so photogenic.
I like big, handsome men with beards. What's wrong with them? Let's get more of them on camera.
Yeah, yes, certainly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that we can make that happen. That's not a problem at all. But I mean, you were talking. I just want to say, powered wheelchair, someone with ME. I just want to say thank you to everyone who has shared my GoFundMe. I'm at 1,500 and something. Jeremy, I'm getting one of these attachments that comes to my wheelchair, clicks on, and it's a battery operated like front.
Yeah, I've seen your appeals online.
I was just going to say, Zach, are you a member of the Facebook group about wheelchair equipment for sale?
I am.
The other day there was a
tri ride. Oh right.
Yeah, there's a Batek and a tri ride, both for sale for under £1,000 or for £1,000.
The tri ride didn't have the power for somebody who eats as many cakes as
well.
Shall we put it that way?
It was one of the big ones, wasn't it? With the big wheel, not the little one.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Wheel, it's a big wheel. Yeah, no.
Yeah, because I know some go up to 100 kilograms.
I'll scoot it your way because you might be interested.
Yes.
I nearly bought the Batek one because I thought, I'll have two, but then I thought Diane will kill me if I fill the house with any more bits of rubbish. But anyway, we should end it there. It's been 46 minutes. We promised Jeremy we wouldn't do any more than 45. So, with that, it's been a fantastic show. Thank you so much, Jeremy. It's been, for someone who doesn't know anything about it, it's been a fascinating program, and it's also something we'll definitely come back to, Zach, I think, and talk some more about.
And don't forget that it's going to scroll up and find out, was it Wednesday evening? No, I'm scrolling.
Yeah, Wednesday evening at between 8 and 9 on Twitter.
Yeah, that's it. ME Awareness Hour.
If you have experience of ME and you want to come on to talk about it, please drop us a line and come on, because it's something I think we should definitely come back to.
Be interested to talk to someone who's new to this with long COVID, which they are saying is, ME really, and how they're coping in the beginning of their journey with this. So yes, we will see you next time. We don't have a.
In fact, just before we go, it might actually be something we should start doing more, doing actual shows about impairment and actually getting people to discuss their condition, whatever. So let's do that. So if you've got something you want to discuss, come on. And with that, we'll end. Because
I want to say quickly, talking about not getting out, I'm going to be at Disability Expo. I can't go because of my fatigue via a telepresence robot. I think it's on the Friday from 11 to 11:50. And I'm going to have
annoyingly, I'm going to be there using the same thing about 2 hours later. So because I was meant to be performing and doing stuff, but I'm not going to be there. So
if you see us, come and say hello.
If you say come up and don't call us Sheldon. We aren't Sheldon Bot.
No, we're not.
Zach Bot and Nick Bot. And with that, thank you so much, Jeremy. Thank you, Zach. I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. And enjoy the lovely weather.
Yeah, that lovely weather. It's going to click the end. There we go.